Hello, everybody. I'm Jeff Granville, and I'm delighted and honored to be here on Harmonium with you, where I have the opportunity to share the amazing breathing exercises that we came up with during my son's journey through leukemia at the age of 4 and 5, 6, and he's 15 now and happy and healthy. And I give a lot of credit to the breathing exercises that I'm about to share. He was actually able to go through an 8-hour kidney transplant without an epidural and zero pain meds for recovery out of the hospital in 9 days. And being able to get to a coherent state of receivership to deal with any of life's singularities, the eye of the needle, that once you go through it, you'll never be the same. So our saying is you've got to become the calm of the storm to fit through the eye of the needle. And these breathing exercises I'm about to share will take you from a triggered state to a controlled state to a coherent state. So thank you for joining us, and let me share my screen and we'll go through this. Um, First of all, I'd like to share this slide from HeartMath. And HeartMath is a company that has been studying and leading the way in understanding heart coherence and heart intelligence for over 30 years. Doc Childrey is the founder, and right alongside him was Bruce Cryer, a friend of mine who is the former CEO and worldwide spokesperson for HeartMath. So HeartMath provides hardware and software that studies the heart variants of the autonomic nervous system. And what happens is when, if you look at the graph here and you look at the left side of the graph, it shows a red line, which is your heartbeat going in a very erratic, incoherent rhythm. And that is fight or flight. That is when we've been triggered, when we're afraid, when we're angry, anytime we're not in balance and in homeostasis, which is shown on the right side of the screen, where your heart rate over time smoothly goes up and down and vacillates between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. This is known as homeostasis, where you are in rest and digest and heal. And it's like a toggle switch. You're either in one side or the other. And every life sustaining energy center of your body is toggled from protection or growth. And that's just how we're made. So understanding the mechanisms of how we store stress and anxiety and how trauma affects our physiology is the utmost important, understanding how we can understand that mechanism, how stress affects us, and how we can use that mechanism to unwind and release and get back to balance and homeostasis. And this is literally throughout my studies, the 10 years of research since I started researching the miracles with my son, is that we are in one state or the other. When we are triggered, we have a convergent focus to solve an issue, to run or fight or put out fire. And we don't think about things, we react. And when we can shift that to an open system where there is a stimulus and there's infinite possibilities of how to respond, it's a completely different state of being. And when we're down in the triggered states of being, like anger and angst and shame and trauma, we are closed off to our connection to spirit, to source, to our divinity. We have to be in an open state of being. And this is how we get there. It takes you from the lower frequencies of anger and jealousy and shame and guilt and opens up your consciousness. It actually elevates your brain waves into a state of receivership for divinity to speak. And that's the core of what we do. And to get to that 0 point, to become that eye of the storm, changes everything. It opens up the possibilities to change the trajectory of that singularity, that moment, that that point in time where once you go through it, you'll never be the same. So we also go through and add to what they call a heart lock-in by giving attention to your heart, physical and emotional attention to your heart, and being open to it in a coherent state. So we add to that in our coherence breathing that I'm about to share. So if we can move on here, this is the list of our 3 beginning breathing exercises. The first being the reset breathing. This is what we use when you remember the graph where on the left side, the heart rate in red was really jagged and incoherent. This is what we use if the environment around us has already triggered us. We want to do the reset breathing. And the description of that is, read along, is taking as much air as possible through a sharp and fast nasal inhale for 4 seconds. Exhale through the mouth for 8 seconds with puckered lips, making a powerful O sound. And we do that for just 1 cycle. And that right there is acknowledged through current neuroscience, academia. I heard it on the Huberman, I heard it verified on the Huberman podcast that this reset breathing, and it's my variation that we use before even knowing this, but this very breathing is the #1 way to reset the autonomic nervous system from a triggered state to an open state. So this reset breathing is extremely important. And I'm going to go ahead for the reset breathing and read the science behind it. This is a little bit tip of the iceberg of the expanded version of the science. So let's read along. When we are feeling anxious or stressed, our autonomic nervous system, the ANS, is stuck in the sympathetic, fight, flight, or freeze. When we take a sharp nasal inhale, we stimulate the sympathetic to a higher point than it is stuck in. Remember those jagged lines. When we oral exhale for 8 seconds while making a powerful O sound, we stimulate the parasympathetic and release serotonin into the bloodstream, and we restart the autonomic nervous system cycle between sympathetic and parasympathetic, generating homeostasis and balance. Okay, so now let's read through the second one, because these go in linear order. You do the reset when you're triggered, and then once you do that for 1 cycle, you do the controlled breathing. And we go to a gentle nasal inhale for 5 seconds. Then we do a gentle oral exhale for 6 seconds while making the ah sound, ah, the vowel sound of God. And we do that for 5 cycles. So let's read the science behind that. For the controlled breathing, when we inhale through the nose, we activate one of the most primal survival mechanisms of our autonomic nervous system. Molecules from our environment are taken in through the nose and directly contact the olfactory bulb. This is a node of neurons that connect the sinus cavity to the amygdala, the emotional center of our limbic brain. Because of this direct link for survival, we emotionally imprint this environmental stimulus into memory. If we nasal inhale with the intention of calming and balancing our autonomic nervous system, we emotionally imprint that intent into memory. When we oral exhale while making the ah sound, the vocal cords vibrate the vagal nerves and they release serotonin into the bloodstream. This triggers the parasympathetic and calms the cells of our body and relieves stress. This can even release serotonin into the spinal fluid and block pain signals before they are sent to the brain. This is how McCoy went through the 8-hour kidney transplant with 0 pain meds. Okay, so that's the controlled breathing. That's what we do second. Now, third, after we go through 5 cycles of controlled breathing, we find our pulse. And it's a good idea to do this ahead of time. So everybody just reach and find your pulse on your wrist. And that gives us a lot of information, because if we're really, really triggered, sometimes we can't even feel that. Okay, so the coherence breathing, we're going to find our pulse on our wrist or neck, And we gently nasal inhale for 5 heartbeats. And we oral exhale for 6 heartbeats. And we do this silently. We just breathe in the nose for 5 heartbeats and we breathe out the mouth for 6 heartbeats. Now let's look at the expanded science on this. The coherence breathing, when we touch our wrist and find our pulse, we are making a biophysical connection to our heart. When we inhale, we activate the sympathetic and our heart rate speeds up. When we exhale, we trigger the parasympathetic and our heart rate slows down. Remember the graph. When we slow our breathing, we entrain and slow the autonomic cycle. If we focus our awareness on the intention of slowing our heart rate during the exhale, we will lower our heart rate and our blood pressure. Okay, so those are the 3 breathing exercises with their expanded scientific explanation. And what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to stop the share and we're going to go back to just us. Okay, so that was a lot of information in a short amount of time, but you can always play this back and we do have the slides available. So this is a very important thing to follow because as we all know, just like playing a piano or riding a bike, the more we do something, the more we get neuroplasticity, where we make a solid pathway. It's like I often explain, especially to kids, it's very, very apparent the understanding of this, but it's like walking through tall grass. If you walk through tall grass once and turn around and look, you'll see your path. But if you go back and forth a bunch of times, you make a path that's easy to see and easy to walk. It's like a super highway of information. So what fires together wires together. The more we do something, the more it becomes neuroplastic and a permanent communication. So even more, when we grab our wrist and find our pulse and make that biophysical connection on the coherence breathing at the end, we are hardwiring. We are making our mind and our heart be together, work together, count together, and it becomes a coherent state of being. This levels out our autonomic nervous system. It gives us coherent thoughts and coherent feelings, and we're more in tune to our environment because the heart has intelligence and knows the world around us up to 6 seconds ahead of time with precognitive intelligence. And if we are connected in our mind and heart, we are in an open position for that intelligence to speak to us. So we don't react. We are open to multiple and infinite possibilities. So if we could, let's do these exercises together. And a quick reminder, we're going to do the reset breathing first, which is the sharp 4-second inhale through the nose, 8-second oral exhale with the O sound. And we only do that for 1 cycle. And then we're going to just count seconds gently in the nose for 5, gently out the mouth for 6 with the ah sound. You'll follow me. And then at the end of 5 cycles, we're going to find our wrist and we're going to really get into that coherence breathing, where when we breathe in the nose, we will sense our heartbeat speeding up. And when we exhale out of our mouth, we will feel our heartbeat slowing down. This is biophysical validation of homeostasis in our body when we mindfully control our breath and our heart into balance and homeostasis. So here we go with the reset breathing. 4 seconds in the nose, as much as you can. Ready, begin. 3, 4, oral exhale. Oh. Now gentle nasal inhale for 5. Oral exhale for 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. Gentle nasal inhale. Oral exhale with the ah. Ah. Nasal inhale. Oral exhale. Nasal inhale. More time. Find your pulse. Breathe in. Oral exhale. Nasal inhale for 5 heartbeats. Oral exhale. Nasal inhale. 5. Oral exhale. 8, 5, 6. Oral exhale. Slow it down. One more time. Speed it up. Oral exhale. 3, 4, 5, 6. Very, very good. Thank you for joining me for our 3 breathing exercises, the reset, the controlled, and the coherence. We are now in a state of coherence, balance, and homeostasis, and we have biophysically validated that, and we're hardwiring it into our physiology. And it's easier to recognize when we're triggered and give a little breath of distance and do the reset breathing, gain control of our heart rate, and then we do coherence breathing. This is how you can transcend any moment of challenge in your life, any singularity, an interview, an operation, anything that's important in your life. You can prepare for that moment and you can help change its outcome. So thank you for joining me. Again, I'm Jeff Granville on Harmonium. Bye.